I'm Gordon Vanderpool with Turning Stones Fly Fishing out of Franklin, North Carolina. I'm here to talk about some trout fishing flies and techniques. What you're going to need is access to an experienced guide. Like if I have somebody come, a beginner, and they want to come up and go, like say if we're going to hit backcountry streams, like all summer long, they come up for dry flies. So I would tell them like a 7.5 foot rod, 3-weight. It's a small rod, it's a light presentation, and like a little Adam's parachute. It's a good dry fly, it's a good basic pattern here in the mountains. It'll catch fish. They're going to come up and eat it, so they're going to have a lot of action on that fly. A good beginner technique is to fish under a strike indicator. For those in the spin fishing world, it's a bobber. But in the fly fishing world, they yell at you for calling it a bobber. So it's a strike indicator. It's a little thing. They can be anywhere from the size of the tip of my finger to like that. Depends on how big the water is you're fishing. But I would have them fish under the strike indicator and usually fish 1 to 2 nymphs. They call it a tandem nymph rig. And it'll be about 1.5 times the depth of the water you're fishing for the trout is how far you adjust the rig. And you're just constantly little roll casts and then setting the hook every time that thing does anything other than float. If you come in the summer, you do tend to run the chance that the water temperatures are going to rise in the summer. It gets hot in the mountains. So with trout, warm water and trout don't get along very well. So us fly fishermen and trout fishermen here that like to catch trout but don't like to kill them, we have a little rule. When it hits 70 degrees, we don't fish anymore. When the water temperature gets that high, they run low on oxygen. So they're really struggling to live. And they can live, but if you catch them and stress one at that time, most likely he's gonna die. He may swim away when you release him, but he'll probably die. Now in the wintertime, as the temperature starts to drop throughout the fall, the trout get more active. Once it gets down to like 65, 60, 55, and 50, the trout are gonna move and feed a little bit more. Probably the prime temperatures are anywhere from 40 degrees up to about 60, 65. Once they get over 65, they do tend to get sluggish. If somebody goes on a trip, I tend to try to teach them the catch and release aspect of fly fishing. A lot of folks come from saltwater and everybody knows those fish are delicious. Everybody loves to eat them. But here in the mountains, these trout are delicious, but we don't have a broad expanse of water like they do in the salt. So if you start taking from a small river over and over, naturally there's not gonna be as many fish in there. So we try to practice catch and release as much as possible. We promote it, and really want people to do that. But in the whole scheme of things, you are allowed to keep trout on certain rivers. There's rules and regulations which you can find in the North Carolina handbook. Okay, what those are just some basic flies and techniques that I like to use for trout fishing.